Surround yourself with good people. Everything from a bookkeeper to your attorney to your accountant. They don't have to be the highest paid people, but they have to know you. They have to know your business. You have to have a relationship with them. Build relationships with that team because that's your team. When you're a startup founder, you're alone. You really are. And there's a lot of people out there that can help you and start building those relationships right away. Because one, they're going to last the entire duration of your business, but they're also going to be that sounding board. You think about when a company evolves, what's kind of the final evolution of a company, the board of directors. You can have that as a startup founder. You can have it as an entrepreneur. You just have it with some of your relationships that you're going to need to be successful. An accountant, a banker. If you have good relationships with those people, your chances to make it through year one, year two, year three are they're going to be that much. They're going to be that much increased.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Fred Warder. And Fred started out his journey growing up in a small town in New York, graduated middle of his class, and then went off to military school and then doing some college study. He had no desire to get into business and intended to go into the Marine Corps for the rest of his life. Then he had his dad pass away as he was graduating, and then helped his mom settle the estate. Shifted over to starting to work for Rent-A-Center, worked his way up there and also got an MBA, continued to work at Rent-A-Center, wore a lot of hats, started to get headhunted and helping out companies to turn around their businesses. And then took a 3-year contract with a family-owned business, decided to go out on his own about 6 years ago, started as a side hustle. And then after COVID, built the business into a full-time job and doing real estate as well. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Fred.
Thank you. It was a big introduction. So I guess I have a lot to deliver today.
Oh, I'll take everybody's life and condense it into the 30-second version of it. So why don't we rewind and unpack a little bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started growing up in a small town in New York.
My father, like you, was an attorney. So I grew up in the house of a small town attorney, local judge, local city attorney, dealt with wills, dealt with just local things. Family estates. So I grew up in a town where everybody knew who I was. I remember being in my PJs as a little kid at the police department while my dad was taking care of clients. So I grew up in a very legal, very disciplined, well-run household.
So now you grow up kind of in that, legal, well-disciplined, well-run household. And then as you're going through that, I think after you graduated just middle of your class and decided, hey, I'm going to go off and do military school. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a second side of my family that were all officers in the military. I had an uncle that's a retired colonel, cousins that are retired colonels. It's a whole branch of my family tree went off and did that. I was just trying to follow in their footsteps. My father was an entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur. But that other side, I just kind of felt a little bit more of an attachment to. And honestly, I didn't apply myself in high school. I was just a kid that wanted to play sports and chase girls, and grades weren't really important to me. So it seemed like kind of an easy path for me.
So now you go off and what did you do while you were in military school, or what did you what area of service did you do, or what did you study?
So I went to a small private school called Norwich University, which is the oldest private military school in the U.S. I got a degree in history. I started off in criminal justice, but then I went to history just because I knew if I was going to go to graduate school, it's more diverse of a degree. Played a little bit of sports in college. And a mediocre student at best. I 2-0 and go is my motto. I was in Marine Corps ROTC, so I knew when I was going to graduate that everything was just kind of there for me. I didn't have a lot of worries. And then my senior year of college, my father passed away, and that kind of changed the whole trajectory. Being an entrepreneur, he had a business, he had rental properties, he had buildings, he had business partnerships. My mom was a very intelligent lady, but a stay-at-home mom, and just needed some manpower to help her get everything settled. And that took me about 2.5 years, just helping her get everything kind of put back together and get her on track to have her own life without him. And after that, I just wasn't sure where I was going to go. So that's the college and therein after.
So now I think that, you step in, help family, dad passes away, help mom figure out the estate, get that all settled. And then I think from there, you went off and worked for Rent-A-Center for a period of time. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I didn't even have a resume. I'm probably 20, 23, 24. I worked when I was taking care of my mom, when I was working at the college job that I had, my summer job, which was a party rental company, just to have money in my pocket. Didn't even have a resume, but I had a good degree. I hired a resume writer. Just, I don't know, it just seemed like a smart thing to do, who became kind of a 20-year mentor of mine, lo and behold. But she wrote a resume for me, helped me publish it. Within 3 days, I got a call from a recruiter from Rent-A-Center. Didn't even know what it was. I got hired as a store manager. Not a high paying job, but there was potential there, a lot of potential. And I spent 10 years there, just about 9.5. And it was a company of about 25,000 people when I got there. It was in 3 countries: US, Canada, and Mexico. And when I left, and I left on my own terms 9.5 years later, I was in the top 40 of the company. I had moved my way to districts, to regions, to divisions, to eventually corporate jobs and a directorship in a corporate office that was right across the street from Pepsi's corporate office, which was right down the street from 20 other major companies that you've heard of. So I found myself just immersed in this corporate world.
No, sounds like it was a great opportunity, and you had the good fortune of getting a good resume writer, or coming into that job and be able to, or have the opportunity to wear a lot of hats and work your way through that. Now, if I remember when we chatted a bit before, so you were at Rent-A-Center for just shy of 10 years, and then I think you got headhunted over to a different company and started help other companies turning around their business. Is that right?
Yeah, one of the reasons I did well at Rent-A-Center is I'm a growth guy. Like when I ran stores, districts, everything was about sales, about customers, about customer experience. That's what led me to the path to the corporate office. When I was in the corporate office, I was in charge of a new program where we picked 300 of the best 3,000 stores and we turned them into, we called them centers of excellence: best customer experience, best sales, best teams. Well, part of what I did there was I also worked with a lot of recruiters and headhunters in Dallas to help find better talent. Well, they ended up recruiting and hiring me as better talent. So I found myself getting recruited to go to a company, financial services, lending. And I found myself in the lending space for roughly about 7 years after Rent-A-Center, where a vice president, eventually to a CEO of another company where I would get cherry picked. I go in, work for 2 years, help boost up the customer experience, help boost up sales. I would get the P&L. These are either stagnant companies, and in 2 cases, they were failing companies. And I took all of them from red to black. And I liked it. I would go in for 1 or 2 years, and then I would leave. My wife and I would move, and that just kept happening. And I did about 4 iterations of that, and it worked out well. But during that time, I got to see that I was making a lot of other people rich, and I was just kind of a 100,000-aire, which is a good thing. It's a good thing in America to be 100,000-aire, but you know, I saw the money that was actually changing hands, and I saw the lifestyle people were living, and a lot of it was because of my 60 and 70 hour work weeks. I was making sacrifices on these other people's behalfs, and that just said, hey, why don't I start doing this for myself?
Hmm. No, makes perfect sense. So you say, okay, I've see other, figured out, how to help other businesses turn them around, help them to be successful, you know, or want to have an opportunity to do it on your own. So where did you kind of start from there? Kind of, did you have a business in mind? Did you dive in full, or, full board? Did you start as a side hustle, or kind of how did that evolve as you're saying, hey, I want to do that, do for myself what I've been doing for others?
Man, that's a good question, and there was a lot of debate. I remember sitting with my wife one night just brainstorming. What are we going to do? I know I'm intelligent to a point. I know I'm a hard worker. And it seemed like the only difference between me and the people I worked for was they took a chance. They had what I would consider probably a little bit more guts than me. So I started looking at the safe bet, which is franchises. And franchises are a great way to go. But I knew brick and mortar. So I started looking at brick and mortar franchises. And I got very close. I almost pulled the trigger on two different ones. One was a very high end dog grooming and boarding. And the second one was a kind of a cool concept where it's a men's barber shop that has a full bar set up. So you pay for a membership, you go in and have a drink, you have the same person that takes care of your hair every time. And I got close. Like I was days from pen to paper on those. And I was going to open two different franchises because I never do anything small. And COVID came. And those two franchises didn't get wiped off the face of the earth, but they both got shut down. Neither of them were deemed essential. And that changed how I looked at everything. And then real estate, I always knew about it, but I started researching it and I started really researching it. And the more I got into it, I realized the barrier to entry to real estate is easy. It's cheap. You know, most people, if you buy a franchise, they're looking for hundreds of thousands or a million in liquid. You could buy a house with $10,000 of rental property, and that's what most people don't realize. And that's the pursuit that I started to go. I started absorbing knowledge, and then I started looking for rental properties.
No, makes sense. So you say, okay, that, kind of gonna take that knowledge and, try to, or almost dived into a couple different businesses, decided that, that wasn't going to work out. Probably was a good thing with, as COVID hit that, you held off on those. Now you get into real estate and start, investing in that, and otherwise getting into rental properties and starting to build that empire or that revenue source. Now, walk us through a little bit, when was that you started that, and kind of where's it at today?
So that started, I bought my first duplex just shy of 4 years ago. I went to YouTube University, took every real estate class that there is that I could find, paid a few people that I really didn't get anywhere with. I found the Bigger Podcasts website, Bigger Pockets podcast. Found tons of great information there, and then started finding more credible places to learn from because there's a lot of them out there, but there's so much information. You got to be careful where you're taking it from. And I found out about private money, which is non-traditional banks that lend 90% of purchase prices in full rehabs, hard money lenders. Most people don't even know they exist. So I learned that I could use a little bit of capital to buy a rental property, and I found a gentleman who was a real estate agent and was an investor. He had a duplex. He was getting ready to walk away from real estate and just kind of retire. I started talking to him, built about a 3-month relationship, and he sold me one of his properties out of his portfolio. Needed some work. It wasn't pretty. Had all the headaches you can imagine with your first rental property, but he liked me and he helped me get started. And you'll find that's the case with a lot of us that are in real estate. You'll find a mentor, you'll find an investor that'll help you, and that really was my catalyst. When I say it's the catalyst, now if you read forward, 3 years later, I've left my full-time corporate job, high-paying jobs. I have a real estate business that employs 10 people. We do fix and flip. We do rental properties. We market to find off-market properties. I have 5 flips going on right now. Between my personal portfolio and the company's portfolio, I have 65 rental properties in 3 states. And man, I'm doing probably about 12 to 15 deals a month. And it's been life-changing. I mean, the freedom is there, but it's not. Sometimes it's still you own your own business. It's everything's a choice. But I'd say the benefit to my family, the time I'm able to give to them, the change in my demeanor, my attitude. It's been 3 years of just life-changing experiences every day.
No, that sounds awesome. Sounds like you've found a great path, and there's always those, or I'd say, ups and downs, or days that you have good days and bad days. And just because you're the boss doesn't mean you don't have a lot of responsibilities, and doesn't mean you don't work hard. It just means you get a little bit of or get to see a little bit of the reward for the hard work, as well as get to see a little bit of that feedback as you continue to grow and have some of the freedom. So I think that's awesome, and it sounds like a great aspect of your journey. And so now, before I jump to the 2 questions I always ask at the end of each episode, so now you've post-COVID, pre-COVID, COVID and COVID after, whatever we want to call it, got into real estate, started to build a team, started to grow or build it out. Now has several team members on closing deals on a more regular basis. Where do you see the next 6 to 12 months headed for you guys?
The next 6 to 12 month, our progression is we're going to start lending. We have built an extensive network of flippers and investors in this area, and we are going to start. We've applied for our California lending license, myself and my 2 business partners, and we are starting our own real estate investment fund. So the fund will start raising capital, and then we will start lending to flippers. It's a very safe way to get a 10% return on your money. We have contacts that both have high net worth now, and contacts that need access to that high net worth. So we decided that we're going to be the bridge and the intermediary while we still continue to grow our real estate business. It's just another add-on to the business, and it's kind of a natural progression that happens in real estate.
No, makes perfect sense. Sounds like a great direction and or continued opportunity for success. So that's awesome. So perfect. Well, now as we have caught up to your present day of your journey and even looking a bit into the future, great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
Worst business decision was taking a job without listening to my wife. My wife, I took one role that really just I shouldn't have taken. I mean, it paid well, and I chased money versus chasing. I told myself years ago I always wanted freedom and the people that I worked with and worked for. I wanted them to help. I wanted people around me that I would thrive around. And I ignored those two principles, and I ignored listening to my wife to take a very high paying job a few years ago, and it bit me. My wife is a very good judge of character. She has an amazing true north about her when it comes to life decisions. And yeah, I ignored her feedback one time, and I won't do that again.
Nope, definitely. First of all, I think always having someone to bounce ideas off with, someone that's a sounding board that gives you sometimes that honest feedback that nobody else will, is always a good person to have in your life. And it's even better if it's your spouse, because they tend to have that intuition and can give you insights that or sometimes you'd otherwise miss. And so I think that's a great mistake to learn from, and something to incorporate going forward. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Surround yourself with good people. Everything from the a bookkeeper to your attorney to your accountant. They don't have to be the highest paid people, but they have to know you. They have to know your business. You have to have a relationship with them. Build relationships with that team, because that's your team. When you're a startup founder, you're alone. You really are. And there's a lot of people out there that can help you, and start building those relationships right away. Because one, they're going to last the entire duration of your business, but they're also going to be that sounding board. You think about when a company evolves, what's kind of the final evolution of a company, the board of directors. You can have that as a startup founder. You can have it as an entrepreneur. You just have it with some of your relationships that you're going to need to be successful. An accountant, a banker. If you have good relationships with those people, your chances to make it through year one, year two, year three they're going to be that much. They're going to be that much increased.
Oh, I think definitely great piece of advice, and a great takeaway. So awesome. Well, now as we're wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So I have a website, investjhb.com. My company's called Joe Homebuyer. The average Joe that buys houses. So investjhb.com. You go in there, you put in your name, email, phone number. Myself or my business partner will call you back. It's not a site that we only advertise via podcast, and we're looking to just connect with people. If you want to get into real estate, you don't know how, give us a call. We'll help you. We don't charge anything. We don't have coaching programs. We don't charge for mentorships. Our bread and butter is rental properties and flips. But we want to connect with people. We want to build our network. And as you said, we want to make a few more best friends along the way. So investjhb.com.
Awesome. Definitely encourage people to reach out, make a new connection, and support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. And now for all of you that are listeners that are out there, you have your own journey to share. I'd love to have you on. So just go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And if along your journey you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Fred, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.